Hello and welcome to a DFS preview for the 2022 US Open. My name is Eric, and here at SweetSpotDFS, it's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup every single week. And we start with these preview videos in trying to target the optimal lineup, which just means going over the stats that are going to be important to incorporate into your lineups this week. And I'm going to be doing that through the bucket system, which if you're unfamiliar with it, I have a link to a video in the description below that'll explain all about it. It won't take you much time. The first 5 minutes pretty much covers everything. So again, there's a link in the description. Go check it out. Not only will we be talking about the bucket system, but I'll be going over the golf course. We'll be going over the tournament information just to get some more research or some more data points for you guys to research. But first, we have a giveaway to run because we didn't hit our goal, but we got really close. So I'm still running away. Someone is going to win $10 right now. Throw out my little giveaway randomizer. Just by selecting Y, we'll find a winner. Just to let you guys know, we had, I already forgot. We had 58 entries into this giveaway, and this spanned all the way back to the Wells Fargo Championship. So if you were participating on this channel by leaving comments, and if you're subscribed to this channel, you got free entries. So more free entries, the better chances you get. Let's see who wins. Jim Lemoyne. So I added two pieces here. I added how many entries this person entered throughout all the videos and which video this entry won. So Jim, just by posting on the Canadian or the RBC Canadian Open, the strategy video, this is your winning entry. So congratulations, Jim. This is what, your third time winning? Yes, you're actually back-to-back winner. That's pretty cool. I think the person who had the most was Joanne Sluice. I think that's how you say her last name. Joanne had like 14 entries. Maybe that was tied with Shot Like Harden, but those were definitely the superstars of participating on the channel. But it's all random choice. Jim, you're the winner. Sorry to everyone else who participated just as much as Jim or more, but that's just how it goes sometimes. So we are going to clear this. We'll clear all of this, and I'm going to go ahead and put up the subscriber giveaway. This week it's worth $30. So Monday, if we hit the goal, you can see it on the screen right now. It's all the way to the left, but we're at 382 subscribers out of 400. So we need to get 18 more subscribers, and I will run this giveaway for $30. So if you want an entry into it, all you gotta do is be subscribed to this channel and then comment down below. Give me your favorite 10K golfer this week. You're gonna need one in the optimal lineup. Just have a very good hunch, just like I did last week, that you're going to need a 10K golfer in your lineup. So give me your favorite one. You can also leave whatever comment you want. You're still going to get participation to that, so leave it down below. Outside of that, I just kind of forgot. I forgot to include Twitter. All the Twitter entries into this last giveaway. You know what? I'm going to load those up for this next one. So for everyone who did participate on the Twitter ones from the Wells Fargo Championship all the way to now, I will add those into this giveaway. Very, very sorry. It just dawned on me right now, but we're recording, so I'm not going to go back. Anyways, back to this one. $30. Be subscribed. Comment down below. You can also get an additional entry if you retweet the video post that I'll be putting out on Twitter. If you retweet that, you get another free entry into this giveaway. If we don't hit 400 subscribers, I'm just going to drop $5 every single week until we either hit the subscriber goal or get down to $10 like we just did. But we just need 18 new subscribers. So if you want a chance to win $30 and you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and comment down below. Another giveaway that I like to do is a prize picks giveaway. If you use the promo code SweetSpot when you sign up, if you're a new signee or sign up, I don't even know what to call it, but you're a new person to Prize Picks and you sign up using the promo code SweetSpot and you put an initial deposit of at least $20 in your account, I'm gonna give you $20 back. It isn't so much of a giveaway as much as it is a refund or a rebate, I guess, if you want to call it that. I will give you $20 for using the promo code SweetSpot. So highly encourage you guys to go do that. There's a link in the description below that'll send you straight there. Now, if you want a chance to follow along, I do have a link in the description below that'll get you to a cheat sheet, and that cheat sheet is going to look a lot like what you see on the screen right now. By the time I post this, I will have that cheat sheet updated with all of the information that I have. We won't so much be talking about these players, but you'll get a head start on some of the research that you can be doing. I have all my rankings already loaded. That's probably not going to change unless we get some withdrawals that happen. But everything else with all the buckets, those are here. The players, all their information. This will be available to you guys. Again, link in the description below to the cheat sheet that I provide everyone, basically. I just ask you guys to go to the file button, go down to make a copy of it for yourself. That way you can mark it up however you like, because my version of it just only gives you read access. You can't write it. But if you make a copy of it, you will be able to. So if you do want to follow along, again, link in the description below. I will also have an optimizer ready for by tomorrow. I usually like to wait until the tee times come out, because I like to add that to the cheat sheet and then send it back out. That way I'm not having to resend the optimizer after I already sent it to somebody. So if you want an optimizer, be subscribed, comment down below, and then reach out to me at SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com and just say you'd be interested in the optimizer. I made a really interesting discovery that we're going to talk about here shortly, because we're going to go right into a review of the RBC Canadian Open. The purpose of the review is just to show you how well the sweet spot process does. So then when you listen to me talk about the US Open sweet spot process, you'll understand why I'm talking about what I'm talking about and how we get there, and also how successful it is. Let's go ahead. Let's bring up the RBC Canadian Open. And I mean, we can start with the results. Rory McIlroy won at 19 under. He edged out Tony Finau and Justin Thomas. If you go back and you check out all the videos, the thumbnail for the preview video was Rory McIlroy. And I like to leave a little message on all of my thumbnails. And I had asked, will Rory defend his title this week? I had a really good feeling he was going to. Kind of funny, Jish Swish on Twitter. I asked him a question from his model. I was like, where's Rory on your model? He's like, oh, he's in 55th place. And so then I started kind of questioning why was he in 55th place, and all of the yardage buckets that his model kind of incorporates said that he's really bad at his estimated or his projected or his typical yardages that he's going to be hitting into. And I kind of like, I challenged him on that, because his scoring model depends on that bucket, and that bucket doesn't always mean like par 5 scoring. It doesn't always mean par 4 scoring, or even par 3 scoring. It's still very good, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to criticize Josh's model, but I just knew there was kind of I don't know what you would want to call it. It just didn't seem right. So when I looked at all the top players, I knew this golf course. I knew the St. George's Golf and Country Club. I knew it was going to be kind of a driver's, I wouldn't say paradise, but kind of like you needed to be a good driver at that hole, primarily because of how narrow some of the chutes were to hit through from the tee box. And I knew Rory was a pretty straight driver of the golf ball. So is Tony. If you go to the strategy video, I have Justin Thomas and Tony Finau as my thumbnails, and I get it, they're the best golfers in the field. But if you went and watched the strategy video, the preview video, I was projecting 2 to 5 golfers in the 10K range to be inside the top 10. And just to prove that to you guys, if I go to my summary and I come down here to my salaries, remember we always round down with the minimum projection. That would be that 2.6 go down to 2. And we always round up when we look at the maximum. So it would be 2 to 5. Well, if we go to the 2022 DK, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4 golfers, 10K and above, inside the top 10. So it was no surprise to me why that was the case. The buckets usually do really well, and we'll be talking about the buckets here shortly. But I just had a really good feeling Rory was going to win. I really wanted to put Rory and Tony Finau together, but when I was putting in my optimizer, when I was locking those two golfers in, when it was building lineups, it stopped at like lineup 9 or 10, and it could not find any more possibilities, any more unique lineups with those two guys in. Found out what the snag was when I was building lineups, but I didn't figure it out until after lineup lock. So now I have a better sense of it. I think I'm as close to figuring this out as possible when it comes to putting lineups together, finding the right golfers to pair together. Again, it always waits until we see, you know, the tee time pairings and stuff like that. So I'm not going to give you any like conviction plays right now. I'll wait till tomorrow and go over my favorite duos in that strategy video to build your lineups around. And then of course use the optimizer to build those lineups. But I guess I'm not going to talk about the rest of these guys. You guys can see these on here. If you just look at some of these players, Sam Burns, great driver of the golf ball. Tony Finau, great driver of the golf ball. Rory, great driver of the golf ball. You could argue Justin Thomas is, but I'm not going to. I don't think he's that great of a driver of the golf ball. Justin Rose has been good, maybe not so much now. Keith Mitchell, great driver of the golf ball. So is Chris Kirk. And so is Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark's biggest advantage is his driver. He hits the ball almost further than everyone on tour. Like him and Rory are up there like 320, basically. I don't know Rory's average drive this year, but we all know he can get up there to the 350 mark sometimes. So drivers of the golf ball were very, very important this week. Obviously, you can see that. Now, one huge issue with this leaderboard is when you look at all the salaries that are inside it, there's no way you can create a lineup with all 6 golfers inside the top 10. And that's kind of how the sweet spot process works, is trying to get all 6 into the top 10. All 6 of your golfers inside the top 10. Now that makes me realize we should probably talk about the optimal lineup versus the GPP winning lineup. Your optimal scored 638 points. Your GPP winning lineup scored 600 points. So it was a 38-point difference. And your optimal was Rory, Tony Finau, Justin Rose, Wyndham Clark, Austin Cook, and Kelly Craft. Austin Cook and Kelly Craft in the 6K range, and they're outside of the top 10. Your GPP winners were Rory, Tony, Rose, Wyndham Clark, so 4 of the optimal lineup golfers. That's really good. Emiliano Grillo, and then Carlos Ortiz in 46th place. So it was doable. We could have easily taken down a GPP. Now, the sweet spot optimal would require all 6 golfers inside the top 10 and over the price tag of $49,000, like combined salary. There's no sweet spot optimal this week. So unfortunately there isn't, but there's a better way to beat the GPP winning lineup, and it's following the green salaries here. And it's just to show you an alternative build that's over 49,000 that still could take down a GPP. So this is more like your optimal lineup above $49,000. That's kind of how I want to call it. And it still would have consisted of those 4, the same 4 golfers, but then it would have went to Danny Lee at 6,600. Actually, that's not true. It would have went to Kelly Craft at 6,600. And it would have scored 2 more points. I think I only included Danny Lee because I want to put as many 10K or as many top 10 golfers as possible, but there's no point to that. So then this would be 2 more points. So it'd be 631. And if you remember, the optimal lineup scored 638. So we were really close to the optimal and trying to like build the realistic. But anyways, enough of that. Let's talk about the buckets and how well the buckets did. Actually, hold on. We'll go back a little bit. We'll talk about the buckets right after we talk about my rankings that I had for these players. So when it comes to the sweet spot ranks, what I want to see are 4 golfers on the first screen in the optimal lineup. The first screen is your top 20. So we had Rose, we had Finau, and we had Rory McIlroy. Now, my consolation is at least 2. So if we have at least 2, I feel good about it, but I want to see 4. We were close. So we see 2, or we see 3. Then we don't see a 4th one until Wyndham Clark down here at 64th place. And then our other 2 guys, Kelly Craft and Austin Cook, are under 100, but that's not super great. If you look at the top ranking guys here, your only miscut was Tyrrell Hatton. We could also include Rory Sabatini, who would have been in 20th place. CT Pan was an 18. You can see there's a little split here between 17 and 19. There's not an 18th rank golfer. That'd have been CT Pan, but he withdrew right before the tournament. So technically, Rory Sabatini is my 20th ranked golfer. It means I had 2 missed cuts, but look at how many top 10s I had. It was really good. Now, if you follow along with me in the strategy video, we talk about the marquee tee times, and we talk about all the rules that go with it. You want to pick 2 to 4 golfers from basically all the golfers that I'm going to be highlighting for you. So these 9 groups are considered in the marquee tee times. You want to pick 2 to 4, anywhere between 2 to 4 of them. And you also don't want to combine players in the same group. Now, it isn't super strict where you can't, but the fact is, it doesn't happen that much. That's why I say don't do it. There's a very, very low chance. And this week is no different. So the first group, you had Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, and Corey Connors. Now, JT finished 3rd, which was still really good. But because Rory was in that group and he won, there's no way you can roster either Justin Thomas or Corey Connors. But that by far was the best scoring group, the best result, oriented group. The best group that I had going into the tournament was Scotty Scheffler, Cameron Smith, and Sam Burns. But subjectively, I would have said Rory, JT, and Corey Connors were. But, their groups were really close. I think if you add up the cumulative score, the first one was 12. The second one was 15. So it was super close to each other. But yeah, you went with Rory there. Then the next group is Harold Varner III, Tyrrell Hatton, and Justin Rose. You wanted Justin Rose there. And again, you wouldn't have played any of the other guys. They were all very high in price, but it works out. It follows the sweet spot process. Then Tony Finau, JJ Spawn, Nick Taylor. I mean, if you're picking a golfer out of that, obviously it's got to be Tony Finau. But there you go. Those were your optimal lineup golfers within those top 3 groups. So now I can actually look at my group ranks and try to figure this out going forward as well. Kind of excited about that. One last thing to talk about last week, and then we'll move on to the US Open, are the buckets. So I have a category or a column over here that shows you the success of the buckets. It's all based off of, it's dependent on how many golfers finish inside the top 10 versus the projections that I have. And then outside of the top 10, I also look at optimal lineup as well as sweet spot optimal, because if golfers within a bucket exceed, like if there are more top 10 golfers than what I had as a max projection, then I'm going to go look at the optimal lineup to see how many of those golfers were in the optimal lineup. And if it's within the projections, then it's still a success. So as you look at this, we really didn't have a last year bucket to talk about, so we're not even going to talk about that. Which means you cut those 6 buckets out of it. Now I have 30 because I have 6 stat categories that have 6 buckets each. 6 times 6 is 36. We cut out one of those stat categories, then we cut 6 buckets out. Now we have 30. And of the 30, you can see all of the success marks that I have all the way down to the salaries. So your 6K golfers, there were a total of 3 in the optimal lineup. That is ludicrous. We never really see that, but the buckets failed because of that, because we didn't have the projections correct. We actually had 0 out of 0 for the low 6K, and one of them was in the optimal lineup. Was not inside the top 10, so I can take like a consolation victory to that, but we did have 2 in the high 6K range, and I was only projecting 0 to 1. So the buckets were 28 out of 30 correct. Gabriel Brown, if you're listening, I know you said you didn't want to use the buckets this week because of, the long COVID break we had. Hey man, they still hit. They still hit. One thing that I added, you're not going to see the buckets over here when I scroll, but I added some miscellaneous information. I want to know what the average salary for a bucket is. I want to know how many golfers have a salary over 9K and whatever that percentage is. Because when I was building lineups, this is what I realized. We go on the recent form 2 bucket. I'll highlight that and we'll scroll across. There were 10 golfers in that bucket. Sorry, it shifted over here. So there were 10 golfers in that bucket. You look at this one here, bucket totals this year, there were only 17 golfers in that bucket total. 10 of them were 9K and above. That brought the average salary above $8,900 for that bucket. And if you're following along with like DraftKings, your average salary there is $8,300. So if this number is over 83, and let's say this percentage of 9K golfers is over 50%, I think these projections you cannot rely on. Like, you can't get there. Sure, I can still project somewhere between 2 to 5 golfers being inside the top 10, but there's no way you're going to roster them, and there's no way you're actually going to be able to fit them in an optimal lineup. As you can see, there were 7 total golfers inside the top 10 from that bucket, which heavily exceeds my projections, but there was only 1 in the optimal lineup. Because if we go back and we take a look at the top 10, and we look at all the recent form golfers, here's a recent form 2, there's another one, another one, another one, another one, and 2 more. Look at all their price tags. They're all 9K and above. Well, actually $8,800 and above. Very, very difficult to put, one of those golfers, let alone 2 of those golfers in the optimal lineup when neither of them win, and neither of them are top 2. So this is what I talk about this too in various different, preview and strategy videos. We can follow the projections, but there's always that possibility that the 10K golfers from that bucket will finish inside the top 10 instead of the low price guys. So if I go just look at all the golfers in that bucket, you can see all the low price guys. It's basically Patrick Rogers, Steven Yeager, David Lipsky, Nick Hardy, Rory Sabatini, and Sean O'Hare. And then you've just got a litter of 9K golfers and above. Well, $8,800 golfers and above. And very, very high quality golfers. So yeah, it would have been hard to find 2 or more to be in the optimal lineup. And I realized that Thursday, primarily because I liked Rory, I liked Finau, but I also liked some of those recent form 2 golfers, and my optimizer was staunch on picking only recent form 2 golfers, and it was the same golfers over and over again, and it was the cheap guys. So I guess if I go back to that, my optimizer I think really liked Nick Hardy. It also really liked Patrick Rogers, as well as Justin Rose. But when you put Justin Rose together with like a Rory and a Finau, that means you need 3 6K golfers. That's just not in me to build lineups that way, so I didn't do it. But 23 minutes into this, I think that's enough of the Canadian Open. Just wanted to throw that out there so you guys know that I'm paying attention to this kind of stuff. I'm trying to optimize the whole process to be more efficient, and to be more correct. I mean, the buckets were already really good. I actually did okay this week. I broke even, which for not being able to really lock in 2 golfers, because again, it was my optimizer issue, I did okay. 100 unique lineups, just kind of like shotgun ownership, basically. Just all the different players together. It was a good week. So let's move to the US Open now. And before we actually talk about buckets, who's in the field and stuff like that, let's go over some of the general information. US Open, one of the oldest tournaments. I think it is the oldest tournament in, the Open would be your oldest one. And then the US Open would be another one. Brookline, Massachusetts this week, the country club. The joke is, when it was built, it was the only country club in the United States, so that's why it gets to be called the country club. Sure, logic checks out, that's fine. I think it's stupid, but still, it works. Field size 156 players. Cut this week is only top 60 in ties. This is different than what we see on PGA Tour normally, where it's top 65 in ties. The whole premise behind this is they really want basically everyone who makes the cut an actual chance to win the tournament. And they also want to improve pace of play. At least that's what I read on the website. So top 60 in ties, meaning 6-6 is going to be really difficult. Maybe it won't be, because I think there are some mispriced guys in the 7K range for sure, and then a really good $8,300 golfer in Sam Burns that I think a lot of people gravitate towards, and I think those guys can make the cut pretty easily. So maybe 6-6 won't be so hard to get to, but top 60 in ties just really limits what you can do. Now, granted, there are some players in this field that you probably haven't heard of. Don't play them. If you haven't heard of them, don't play them. Usually the cream rises to the top at this tournament. It's going to be really rare to see a Michael Campbell come out of nowhere and win this tournament again. If you didn't know, he was a US Open qualifier, had no tour status, nothing like that. He was a literal average Joe like you and I before he qualified for the US Open and then went on to win it. I don't think we're going to see that again, and if we do, so be it. I would not put any stock in trying to find that player. So top 60 in ties, it might be difficult this week. Winning a GPP is going to be very, very challenging, obviously, but you got to find the right 6K golfer. That's always my belief. Trying to find the correct one is not always the easiest. Average win score is -6. Now, we've seen anywhere from -18 to, what was it, +1? Oh no, -1, I think, as a win. Let me double check on that one. My data goes back to 2013. Yeah, Brooks Koepka won at +1 at Shinnecock Hills, as did Justin Rose at Marion Golf Club. So Brooks Koepka also won at 16 under at Erin Hills, which obviously that course didn't have its defensive wind. But if you take Erin Hills out, Woodland would have won at -13. And then everyone else is basically between -4 and -9. So that average of -6, I could see. And this golf course looks like it can play pretty tough. Super small greens. They're going to obviously grow the rough out. When I kind of toured the course online, you know, the hole by hole, it didn't so much look like driving the golf ball would be very difficult, but it definitely looks like a strategist golf course, like trying to figure out the right places to leave it to give yourself the best approach shot into the green. Now, when we get down to weather and wind, oh, I forgot to put the degree marks with the weather. Rookie mistake. Wind 15 to 25 Thursday, 10 to 20 on Friday. That's gonna, if the greens are already firm and fast, that's just gonna make them firmer and it's gonna make them faster. It's gonna be a little tricky. It's gonna be difficult. So yeah, that average win score, I could see the tournament winning score for this golf course being anywhere between -2 to -4. But it's going to be really difficult, and I think the cut score for this event is probably going to be +6. Especially with the wind like that forecasted, I think that's where we're heading. Now, I got the strength of field at 853. That's what my understanding of the calculation of strength of field. I will be completely honest with you right now. I'm usually off within 10 points. So it could be 862, it could be 844, but it's going to be around 850 strength of field points this week, which makes it a pretty difficult golf course, or a pretty good strength of field. It's not the hardest, or it's not the best the PGA Championship was. Either way, you get all your top golfers here, including those that went to the Live Tour. They're all going to be here as well. Like Louis Oosthuizen, I think, has 16 points towards the OWGR. I think he's the 14th ranked golfer in the world, if I remember correctly. He's bringing strength of field here. Obviously, Dustin Johnson is as well. So either way, hard. hard field, hard golf course, obviously US Open. Hopefully, you know, they don't make it like a circus out there like they did at Shinnecock Hills, and but it's still challenging. That's why we like the US Open. So that's what we got with just your general tournament information, your golf course, country club. There were several architects that kind of worked on this golf course, whether it was renovations or building the first 9, building the second 9, and then doing a facelift. I think Gil Hance had his hands on this. So I didn't put a particular architect because I don't really think there's one that had more of an effect than another. I think Reese Jones did a renovation. Willie Hayes was the first architect, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head, but either way, I don't think it's going to matter. So par 70, 7,200 yards, POA bent, all the way through. You're going to look at the GCSAA and only see POA on the greens. But if you follow PGA Splits 101 on Twitter, he reaches out to the superintendent and actually gets the specific information. He found out that the greens are 70% POA, 30% bent. Why does this matter to you guys? Well, something that is pure POA, you can... How do I put this? POA is very unpredictable, just in general. The more POA there is, the more unpredictable the putting greens are. But there's also a skill to put on POA. You always want to be firm. Hit past, because POA flowers pretty quickly. You know, if it gets the right sunlight and the right heat, it will bud pretty quickly. And as much as like if we were at Torrey, not Torrey, but if we were at Pebble Beach, that's 100% POA. If you were to putt on those greens, oh, Torrey Pines is a good one too. If you remember Tiger Woods' putt, you know, against Rocco Mediate, what was the 2007 US Open? You saw his putt bump a bunch of, or bounce a bunch of times. That's from POA. It's from POA. It's from stress on the greens, from people walking. It's from traffic, I should say. People walking. POA makes things that makes the surface bumpy. Well, when you introduce bent into it, it kind of like smoothens it out. So what should you do? I would just say still look at POA. I think that's the best way to look at it, POA putting splits. But if you want to incorporate bent into it, and I did with my model, I don't see an issue with that, because it's still going to play some effect to it. And having, and maybe you just create a model that is just only of POA bent, that would be fine as well. So I'd go with that. Rough, you don't really, it's going to be thick stuff. It's got bluegrass, ryegrass, as well as POA. The bluegrass will get thick. So ryegrass can get thick. It's a narrower leaf, so it's not as thick as like a bluegrass, but I'm guessing the bluegrass is prevalent here more than the other ones. So anyways, that's what you can do with your data points, you know, when it comes to researching. Find your best golfers. Looks like the weather's going to be warm this week, so it should make things a little bit more interesting. I think there's actually a chance of thunderstorms on Friday. I don't know like how severe, but it looks like there's going to be some precipitation, so maybe that softens the golf course a little bit. All speculation. Always check Wednesday night for weather. But that is basically the tournament information and course information that I have for you. Now it's time to jump into the buckets. So let's go ahead and pull up the buckets. I like to go to the summary page. Again, you can follow along with me on the cheat sheet. There are 2 tabs on that cheat sheet. One is for the dream sheet, one is for the buckets. So if you want to follow me along here, you certainly can. Again, link in the description below. I always like to show you this. I'm going to hide all of this information here. I don't care to really look at it or even talk about it. And why don't we hide this information as well? That way we kind of have the important stuff right here. I'm going to put a filter on this. You can also put a filter on yours because it will be available through the cheat sheet. And let's just talk about each of these stat categories one by one. Again, there's a link in the description below to talk about the bucket system, me explaining it, that is. You'll gain a lot from the first 5 minutes. But there are 6 stat categories that I look at before building lineups. Last year, last week, so last year's finish, that is, at the US Open. Last week's finish, which would be the RBC Canadian Open. That includes people who didn't play. That is, to me, a finish. Course history, recent form. The course history goes back to 2013. Recent form goes back the last 7 weeks. So I'm looking at their average finishing position last 7 weeks, their average finishing position at the US Open the last 9 years, going back to 2013. Then we're looking at salaries, and we're also looking at strokes gained stats, which I do in my own way. Watch the bucket system video if you want to understand what that is. But we will look first at the last year buckets. Basically what I'm doing is I'm analyzing every last year finish for this event dating back to 2013, trying to determine if there's a trend, how important it is finishing inside the top 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60. How about miscuts? Do miscuts really affect, success at this tournament, or just not playing the year before? So we'll look at that's what the bucket system looks at. So when we're reading this, you can see all the ranges that I kind of just mentioned. We can see kind of like how frequently, a golfer from one of these buckets finishes inside the top 10. So you got your min maxes here. Minimum means at least one golfer from this bucket has finished inside the top 10 at the US Open every single year. So I incorporate that into my projections based off of what's in the field this week, because it goes and it looks at the strength of field that applies to that bucket for this week's tournament, how many golfers are in that bucket, the success rate, the frequency rate, all that gets applied into my projections. So I'm projecting 2 to 5 golfers who top 20 this event last year to finish inside the top 10 this year. So that's probably the first stop you want to do. There are only 22 golfers to choose from, meaning there's not a lot. And now this is what we just talked about with the Canadian Open. The average salary for that bucket is $8,500. There are 9 golfers in that bucket, but it's only 40% of that bucket that is 9K and above. So there is a realistic chance that you can find at least 2 golfers from this bucket to put inside your lineup. But more likely it's going to have to be like a low 10, low 9, a 10 and an 8, or maybe you put a 10 and a 7 together. But we are seeing the same things for the Canadian Open, which means 10K golfers are probably going to be really important this week if that average salary is $8,500 and above, and only 40% are 9K and above. So you're gonna want a 10K golfer in your lineup. I wouldn't say put 2, but we might see somewhere between 2 to 4 inside the top 10 that are 10K and above. That would be, it'd be difficult, but if you start with a 10K, you're not going to feel out of it, because you're probably going to be, that golfer is going to probably be inside the top 10, making you feel like they might win the tournament or have a chance to win it. That's why I think going 10K is really important this week. The rest of the buckets underneath, that 20 to 40th position, or that 40 to 60, or the 60 to 80, it's really a crapshoot. I have 0 to 1 projected for each of those buckets. Really, the only anchor bucket outside of the last year ones would be missed cuts from last year. I'm projecting somewhere between 1 to 3. And then golfers who didn't play, somewhere between 0 to 2. So just to give you kind of an idea of what that looks like, if you were go to the cheat sheet, you put that filter on. If we go to last year ones, you can see all the golfers that are here. There are some good names. There's 22 golfers in total. I believe Paul Casey already withdrew, so I probably should just take him out of the pool. Actually, let's do that right now, so you guys can see how this gets updated in real time. So Paul Casey, $7,700. I'll remove him here. I also have to remove him from my recent form page. And then come right back up to the summary just to see if it changed. It did a little bit, but it's still projected somewhere between 2 to 5. That means Paul Casey just wasn't that important anyway to begin with. All right, so looking at last week or last year ones, like I said, a lot of golfers 9K and above. I like Rory. I like Cantlay. Those are golfers that I'll probably be playing a lot, but I also don't mind playing any of the other 10K golfers. Rahm, Scheffler, Thomas are up there. What are the chances that of the 5 golfers, including Morikawa, with the names already rattled off, that they're going to finish inside the top 10? Probably pretty high. I could see Rahm being there, Rory being there, Thomas and Scheffler. Probably don't see Morikawa there, but I mean, that's all up to you. But then we also have Xander, who's going to be a good play this week. Same goes with Jordan Spieth. So that's why I'm saying the projections can still be right. We can still see 2 to 5 golfers inside the top 10, but it would be really hard, you know, to focus on this bucket and really try to make like 3 golfers, 4 golfers work. Starting with 2, I think, is the right way to go. And then just seeing if you can sprinkle in a 3rd or a 4th, that's up to you. Like maybe you like Louis Oosthuizen this week. Maybe you like Russell Henley, or even like Francesco Molinari. If you like those golfers, more power to you. You can add them to your pool to go along with like a Scheffler and a Morikawa, or not a and Morikawa, but like a Scheffler and like a Patrick Cantlay or a Dustin Johnson, whatever you feel is right to build along. These are your golfers. Now, when it comes to last year 3s, these are not last year 3. I'm sorry, last year 5s. This is the only other anchor bucket. These are golfers who missed the cut last year. There are 25 golfers in that bucket. Some of these you could just write off. Like, I do like Chan Kim as a very low price play, but you could probably just write him off. Same goes with Hayden Buckley, Davis Shore, Bo Hoag, Brian Stewart, Wyndham Clark, Victor Perez. You could write those guys off if you wanted to. I don't mind Victor Perez, and I kind of feel like Wyndham Clark's finish last year or last week might be okay. It might, you know, give him a little confidence. But we have a lot of good players here. Munoz, Simpson, Answer, Corey Connors, Tyrrell Hatton, Max Homa, Tony Finau, Sam Burns. If you remember, we only want 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket in our lineups. Because that's all I'm projecting to be inside the top 10. Which, to me, when you look at some of these names, like Zalatoris, Hovland, Smith, you're going to have to really find convictions from this bucket to play in your lineup. 1 to 3 is the max. I don't mind playing 2 golfers, but if you're really high on a lot of these golfers, you should probably limit it down. That's kind of my advice to you guys. And I'm not going to talk about last year's 6s. There's too many golfers in that bucket to talk about. There's 88 of them. So we're going to move on to the last week buckets. And instead of like rattling off all of the buckets, I'm just going to tell you that like the top 2 or top 3. So last week, having a top 20 finish, pretty good. But the projection is pretty low. If you remember, if you've been with my videos before, if this max projection isn't over 2, then the minimum projection is always 0. Because I want a 2-point difference between maximum projection and minimum projection. This max only goes up to 2. So then logically this goes to 0, despite it showing 1. Because I don't, as much confidence as I have in these buckets, I don't when it comes to when the minimum projections are, or I should say the maximum projections are under 2. It's just, it's not that, I'm not that confident in it. When we look at some of these other buckets, like this last week 3 bucket, there's only 1 golfer in it. And he's $10,200, so that just gives it away who it is. Not the highest probability of a golfer being inside the top 10. Now, don't get me wrong. It's Cameron Smith. You can see him on the screen right now. That doesn't mean he can't finish inside the top 10. Because remember, this projection always goes, you always round up. So this would be 0 to 1. Yeah, we only have 1 golfer in it. Cam Smith is good enough to be that golfer, but the likelihood of it is pretty low. But outside of like top 20s, did not plays are the buckets you want to go to. Golfers who did not play at the US Open. So despite Justin Thomas wanting to play the week before every major, maybe the US Open wasn't the right major to do it before. However, we usually only see 7.8 golfers from this bucket play in the US Open. We had 13 this year. So even with that overabundance, it doesn't make this bucket all that more confident like to play, but it's still pretty good. So Justin Thomas is in this bucket, Rory McIlroy is in this bucket, Tony Finau's in that bucket, Sam Burns is in that bucket, anyone who topped 20 last week. So I think chances are we're going to see at least one golfer from that bucket inside the top 10. And I would put more of my money on Rory than anyone. Maximum 2 though, right? That's how we look at this. So when we look at last week ones, did Scheffler somehow squeak in to a top 10? Yeah, he finished, or top 20. He finished 18th. So here's a really good, here's a good test. I would put my money on it that we only see a max of 2 golfers from this group inside the top 10. A lot of good golfers, a lot of good names. Finau, Burns, Fitzpatrick, Lowry, McIlroy, Thomas, Scheffler, Connors, Rose. These are going to be guys that are going to be played quite a bit. And I'm only projecting 2. So maybe this is where we get our edge. Oh man, that's really difficult because these golfers are really good. It'll be really fun to see if this bucket actually holds up and is successful. And oh, by the way, just to kind of say what I've been saying before, Scheffler, Rose, and McIlroy could all finish inside the top 10, but you might only be able to play one of them. So because of that, because only one of those guys will be in the optimal lineup, and really can only be in the optimal lineup because you couldn't put the other 2 guys with them, that bucket would still hit. Because if you can only play one of them, my projection is 0 to 2. It fits in that projection, despite 3 of them being inside the top 10. Should throw that out there. But what I'm trying to also say is, if you do like a Rory McIlroy, like I do, the chance of him and like Corey Connors being the optimal lineup is slim to none. Or just finishing inside the top 10 are slim to none. Same would apply for any of these other guys, like $8,200, $8,300 and below. So I did like Rory McIlroy with Sam Burns. That would be max. If I went Rory McIlroy, Sam Burns, I'm excluding everybody else from my lineups. We're not playing anyone else, especially anyone in that 7K range and below. That's how the bucket system works. So outside of that, we wanted to talk more about the last week buckets, because really the only one worth talking about would be those that top 20'd. All the other finishes are kind of just spotty, in between 0 to 1. Probably don't want to look there. Most of your golfers are going to be coming from this bucket. 4 to 8 is what we have as a projection, because there's 125 golfers in that bucket. So be on the lookout for that. Again, probably not a bucket you should really focus on, except for those top 20s. How many do you want in your lineup from last week that were inside the top 20? Moving on to the course history buckets. Really, this should be called event history or tournament history, because the US Open rotates golf courses every single year, so we're not at the same golf course. This is the first time we've seen Brookline since 1988, I think. So I wouldn't put much stock into like course history, but it still applies to event history. So we have 4 golfers who have a better than 20th place finish on average at this event in the field this week, but the projection is 0 to 1. So despite them having really good average finishing positions at the US Open, probably don't play them. Despite this bucket usually always seeing 1 inside the top 10. That's what this min means. It means it has at least seen 1 every single year. Let's just see who might be in that course history 1 bucket. Xander, Brooks, Guido, Lingmerth. We can cross these guys out. But maybe, if how I look at this is it's 0 to 1 as your projection. Don't play Brooks and Xander together. I'm telling you right now, that is a rule. If you are a loyal follower of mine, do not put Xander and Brooks together. Just don't do it. I don't see the buckets losing this one. but also be very wary of playing either Xander or Brooks because this bucket isn't looking that great. It's right there with the Cameron Smith bucket. I'm really feeling it now where I don't want to play Xander, I don't want to play Brooks, and I don't want to play Cam Smith. It's helping me narrow down the players I want to play. Your top buckets though are really the ones in between. So having good course history here does matter. So being that 20 to 40 range, that 40 to 60 range, having that average finishing position in between them, that's where you want to be. And the only one really worth talking about would be this course history 2 bucket, because there's only 19 golfers in that bucket. The other one has 37. That one's going to be difficult to consider. And actually, I don't really want to talk about all of this right now because we'll be talking about this with the anchor buckets. Let me just give you kind of a look at everyone. I'll talk about the players that I like in each of these buckets tomorrow. Yeah, you have a lot of good names there. So pause the video, take a screenshot if you want. I'm not going to talk about these golfers. We'll save it for tomorrow, despite me talking about last week pretty in depth. Going to recent form, having good recent form matters coming into this event. All your top 3 buckets with recent form are your top buckets for projections. 1 to 3 in that 0 to 20 range, or that 1 to 20 range. 2 to 4 in that 20 to 40 range. 1 to 3 inside that 40 to 60 range. So definitely having good recent form coming into the US Open is very, very beneficial. Just throwing that out there. Looking at salaries, which reminds me we should probably look at optimal lineups for this event, dating back for as long as we can. Having a 10K isn't as prevalent as it was at the RBC Canadian Open. I'm only seeing 1 to 2, and really that means 0 to 2. So it's a possibility we don't see a 10K golfer inside the top 10. But every single year we have at least seen 1 and up to 4. It really looks like your 9K range is the juiciest one, the one that you can actually have more confidence in. Same applies with the 7K range. 1 to 4 is what we have a projection there. So that might help you out with building some lineups, but why don't we go ahead and just take a look at past optimal lineups. We usually do this like in the beginning of a video, but I think it's okay doing here with the salaries. In 2017, Ricky Fowler was 10K, so there's one 10K golfer we've already talked about, or that was inside the top 10 and in the optimal lineup. Then you had Brooks at 9, Matsuyama at 9.6, 2 6Ks, and a 7K. So just to repeat, that's a 10, 2 9s, a 7, and 2 6s. In 2018, we had 0 10K golfers in the optimal lineup, but we had a 9, 8, 8, 8, 7, 7 build. So that is your very balanced build. And my good friend Chad Eckert would say pepper the 8K range, because right there, that would have won you a GPP very, very easily. In 2019, your optimal lineup had no 10K golfers as well. Started with Gary Woodland at 8,000. Then it was Justin Rose 9,700. Schauffele, Scott in the 8K range, Louis in the 7K range, and Ches in the 6K range. So once again, we're seeing no 10K golfer, and more 9s and 8s. So that's kind of scary. I told you for the comment section you're going to need a 10K golfer. Maybe that's not the case. When it comes to 2020 US Open, this was that COVID one, so it was at a funny time. Bryson won the tournament at 9K, but we did have a 10K golfer as your optimal lineup, and actually GPP. That's when the GPP, it's actually the first time I've ever seen a GPP winning lineup be the optimal lineup. But you had one with Xander at 10, then DeChambeau at 9, 3 7Ks, and then a 6K Will Zalatoris. Wouldn't that be nice, having Will Zalatoris at 6K once again? But don't get me wrong, you had DJ here, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy in the 10K range. You had 3 golfers in the 10K range. It's just they didn't finish inside the top 4 top 5. Actually, we had 4 golfers in the 10K range and above with Xander Schauffele. He was the only one in the optimal lineup. But again, with more 10K golfers, you can only really have one be in the optimal lineup. It's really difficult to put 2. But yeah, this is a good example of showing you guys that you can have several 10K golfers inside the top 10, but not have them in the optimal lineup. And then 2021, your optimal had John Rahm, your highest price guy, 11.2. Then it dropped to Colin Morikawa, 95. Louis Oosthuizen at 8K. English at 7. And then we had Guido Migliozzi and Mackenzie Hughes in the 6K range. So a lot of different builds when it comes to the optimal lineup. Just to note, that only left $400 on the table. In 2020, your optimal only left $100 on the table. 2019, it only left $200 on the table. 2018 only left $500 on the table. And then 27 only left $300 on the table. So this is not a time where you should leave a lot of money on the table. Like, is the most 500. Try to get as close to 50,000 as possible. Coming back to the buckets, highly recommend you guys go watch that bucket system video if you don't know what these strokes gained buckets mean. But all I have to tell you is cream rises to the top, because golfers who have all of their stats positive for strokes gained stats, the projection somewhere between 2 to 5. And if you're following along with the cheat sheet, basically every golfer is color coded based off of their strokes gained stats. So it's really easy to find what you're looking for. Like if you were to sort it by salary, anything in this dark green color, strokes gained 1. Anything in the light green color, strokes gained 2. Yellow is strokes gained 3. This orange color is strokes gained 4. And then obviously again, it follows the color scheme here. So it's an easy way to remember. The closer to, I mean, just think of the stoplight colors. Green is good. That means you should play them. Especially with the projections that I have. The darker the green, the better. And when it comes down to red, the darker the red, the worse. So might want to stay away from those guys. But yeah, you want good golfers. Those that are quote unquote ball strikers. So strokes gained 3 means bad off the tee, but usually good on approach. Or I'm sorry, it's your bad putters. My bad. These are your team no putts, which are usually your ball strikers. If that's the case, the projection's 0 to 2. So this isn't a time to go team no putt. And also it's not a time to go team putt without good off the tee stats. You definitely want to hammer down the off the tee stats, whether it's all stats positive or positive off the tee, positive putting. That's where you want to be. So those are all the buckets. We're at an hour. I don't want to go too much further into this. So let's go ahead and just remind you guys of the different giveaways that we're running. $30 are up. We already ran a giveaway earlier in the video. Check to see if your name was called. Jim Lemoyne. So Jim, you won again. Contact me or I'll just send you the money the same way I sent it to you before. But this week, we can get up to 400 subscribers. I'm giving $30 away. Be subscribed. Give me a comment down below. I had told you earlier in the video, give me your favorite 10K golfer because I think we're going to need one. How about this? Give me your favorite 9K and above golfer because I truly think that's where we're gonna need to be. That'll get you an entry into the giveaway. Again, be subscribed. If you haven't signed up with Prize Picks yet, there's a link in the description below. Put in the promo code SweetSpot, put $20 in your account, and I will give you a rebate of $20. I'll give you $20 back. That way you can play for free. Prize Picks will match your deposit. That way you'll have $40 in your account and it'll cost you nothing but that sign up information. And then obviously cheat sheet optimizer will be available to you guys. Reach out to me if you want that optimizer. Again, be subscribed and comment down below. That's all I have for you guys for this preview. Sorry it came out late. Very busy this weekend. Played in a golf tournament. It was great. Tied for first. Got pencil whipped. So be it. But yeah, it's summertime. Things are going to be busy. But I appreciate you guys watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.